You're listening to Uproar, a podcast of the Akron Zoo that gives listeners a behind-the-scenes look at the zoo, our amazing animals, and the dedicated people who work here. With your Uproar hosts, Zach Berkey, Randy Thomas, Sam James, and Elena Bell. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Uproar.
Welcome to Uproar. Today we're speaking to one of our horticulturists, Emily. She's joining us in the pod to talk about what she does here at the zoo. She's been here for 2 years, and she's one of 3 of the hort team. She's going to talk about plants and stuff. So, Emily, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to is this your first podcast?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what you do. Actually, let me start with this. Where did you come from, and why the Akron Zoo?
So I went to college for zoology because I thought I wanted to be a zookeeper for a really long time. And then right out of college, I actually got a job at an environmental firm, and I was like, well, this is good enough for now. Like, I still get to hang out with animals. It'll be mostly plants, but I'm improving habitat. Once I did that job, I fell in love with plants, and I realized that's where I belonged. It was mostly planting natives, getting rid of invasives, and just increasing biodiversity in wetlands, prairies, forests, things like that. And I absolutely loved it. Then I saw that there was an opportunity at the Akron Zoo that opened up, and I get to see really cool animals and get to hang out with plants all day, and I thought it was a really good combination of the skills that I've acquired over the years, so that's how I ended up here.
Nice. It's like the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
What exactly is a horticulturist? That's a big word.
Yeah. You pretty much just take care of plants. Really, I like to take it as increasing as much biodiversity you can while staying as native as you can. Not everybody plants the same way. Some people like to put in more ornamental plants and things like that, but with my background, I always try to put in more natives and things like that that are beneficial for our pollinators. Pretty much just improving landscapes, and it's not just like mowing grass and things like that. That's more landscaping. This is more planting, properly pruning, getting rid of unwanted plants, basically looking at a bed or a landscape and just figuring out how to make it more desirable.
Is there a special project that you're particularly proud of or really excited that you've been a part of over the last couple of years that is here at the zoo that you can or want to talk about?
Well, this past winter, we've been pruning like the entire park, so that's actually been pretty cool to see. It's been needed done for quite a while, and we finally had a good opportunity to do it. So hopefully in the spring, everything comes out looking nice and clean and really flushes out well. There's also going to be a couple large planting areas that we're going to be doing. The front of the Welcome Center, me and my other horticulturists, we've been working on something called the Alpine Garden, and we want to make what has been a bed that's been abandoned for a while. It really doesn't have much going for it. We're going to add in some rocks, some native plants. We're going to move around some trees, and it's going to look kind of like a little alpine forest, hopefully, when we're done. And then across from that, something that I worked on really hard was our Hannah composter bed. It is now a native prairie. It originally was just full of invasives and garbage and things like that. I went through with one of our seasonals, and we took out everything we didn't want. The things that I did want, I kind of put in little pots, put them to the side, killed everything else, replanted the stuff, reseeded it, and now it's a fully functioning prairie. There was goldfinches in there last year and monarchs, swallowtails, so it was really cool to see something that couldn't be used by our pollinators, things like that, is now a good habitat for them. So I'm really glad I got to do that.
I know a lot of previous guests have always talked about, the importance of native plants or compared to invasive or non-native plants. Can you reiterate the importance of not planting invasive species in Ohio?
So invasive species can create something called a monoculture, where it's just one plant will take over an entire area. So like honeysuckle and other invasives, they're less nutritional for our pollinators and even our birds and things like that. If there's an abundance of that in a monoculture, it's going to actually decrease the amount of nutrition and resources we have for our pollinators, animals, everything that we have. So instead of a bunch of honeysuckle sprouting, if we got rid of it, we can maybe have some really cool trillium popping up or some Virginia bluebells, things like that could naturally come up and actually provide for our species around here.
Can you explain to our listeners quick what the difference between invasive and non-native are? Because I know there's a lot of non-native plants that are planted that aren't really technically invasive. What's the difference between the two?
So Invasive means it can like really take over. So Japanese knotweed, honeysuckle, like your thistle, things like that, things that'll just kind of go. Non-native doesn't mean it's not invasive, but it's not from Ohio or from our region. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just not native to our region. But it shouldn't take over. Things change all the time. I mean, honeysuckle, cowrie used to not be invasive. I mean, we planted it here in the park. Now as things change, we realize that it's taking over. It's no good. So we're trying to get rid of all that stuff and put natives in instead.
So what changed? Is it just they just go to seed and then birds spread them, or?
Yeah, honeysuckle in general is pretty bad because it has so many berries. Mm-hmm. So the birds will eat them, and then they'll kind of spread them throughout the park or people's lawns. A lot of things people originally planted because they liked the look of it, and they didn't necessarily know the consequences of having it. So some people really like Japanese knotweed because it makes a really good barrier for where you can't see your neighbor's house maybe. Mm-hmm. But those rhizomes are going to grow into your basement and into your walls and is going to mess up your foundation. So a lot of it is people just didn't know and they liked the look of it, and they learned later.
Is there a non-native plant that everyone thinks that is native that you can think that you see all the time?
Yeah, broadleaf cattail. A lot of people really like cattail.
If you could change the rules and have a non-native invasive plant that would be okay to plant, what would be your go-to?
I'm going to go with purple loosestrife because it's really pretty. It has a pretty purple flower. It usually grows in like ditches and things like that. I spent years though just spraying it like crazy. So it was really pretty to walk up to a site and see a field of purple, but it was kind of also sad because it was a field of purple and nothing else. Yeah. So that might be like the prettiest one.
Yeah, there you go.
So you're talking a lot about native plants, non-native plants, invasive species. Is there somewhere that someone could go to look all this up? Because as someone who is not well-versed in plants, this is all very foreign to me. So is there like a database or something like that?
So if you're looking for good information on what's native and what's invasive, you can look a lot of our parks around here, like Summit Metro Parks. You can check out their page. I try to look at anything that's like a government agency website because generally they're a little bit more forward with what's native and invasive because a lot of time they're actually doing work like in the parks to get rid of invasive, so they don't really want to promote you planting those kinds of things.
I also want to plug, there's an app called Picture This where you just take a picture of a plant and it'll tell you what it is, where it came from, and pretty much clue you in if it's native or not.
Sometimes it works.
Yeah, I mean sometimes it's a little.
Is that not an accurate app?
I don't like it.
Oh, really?
It's no.
Okay, controversial. You want to fight about it?
No, it's good if you know what you're looking at. So as long as you have some realm of knowledge, it's okay to use. But if you don't totally know what you're looking for and you put that in, it's not always the best. Sometimes I'll use it and I'll know it's wildly wrong, the thing that will pop up. So you just gotta be really careful with what you're looking at.
So Emily, can you talk to us about some things that we can do as we're listening to this podcast at home that's going to help, with maybe some green thumbs, some gardening lovers? That's, what are some tips that you would recommend or suggest doing?
Sure. So the biggest thing I recommend is when you go to clean out your garden and your beds, wait until spring. Especially if you have a lot of natives or plants with hollowed out stalks. A lot of insects, like our pollinators, will actually go in those stalks over the winter to hibernate. So if you leave them out, it's really good habitat for them. So whenever I clean out my garden, I wait until the last frost. I try to keep them up for as long as possible because things like solitary bees can actually be living in them. And then the leaves in your yard, I know a lot of people really like to get rid of their leaves. If you like lightning bugs, keep them in there. A lot of lightning bugs will hibernate in your leaf piles over winter. So if you want to have something cool in the summer, keep your leaves on the ground and then take them out after spring.
I hope my wife is listening to this episode. She's given me permission to not rake my leaves.
It really is good. I know it might look to some people kind of messy, but you're helping out so many little critters. You really are. So my biggest thing is wait when you do your cleanup. I know it's super hard, especially on days like this where it's like 50 degrees. You kind of just want to get out there. it's not time yet. Also, whenever you're planting, figure out, are you doing annuals? Are you doing perennials? A lot of native seeds, when you plant them, the first year you're not going to get flowers. And a lot of people get kind of like worried, like, oh my gosh, it didn't work, nothing happened. If it's a perennial native plant, you're not going to get your flower until the second year at most. So, be patient.
Stay motivated.
Yeah, pretty much just keep at it. And then whenever you are planting, a lot of nurseries around here will have stickers that say like beneficial for pollinators or attracts hummingbirds or attracts monarchs. Try to do stuff like that. There's so many different things you can do, different colors, different smells, different textures. That'll still make your landscape look nice, but it'll also help out a lot of pollinators and insects.
Do you have a home garden at your residence?
So I just moved into a house. So I'm very excited for this spring to redo everything. At my old home, I had a little prairie in our back. I had a solitary bee house.
Nice.
I would say probably 70% of my plants were native that I had just because that's my thing.
Do you have a vision for what you're going to do this spring?
Kinda. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Tell us about it.
So the backyard's a little bit more shady, so I'll probably do some more shady plants back there. I'm hoping for some spring ephemerals, kind of like we talked about before, like maybe some trillium or bluebells. I would also like to add in some ferns that go back there. And then the front, I would actually like to make the bed a little bit bigger and then drop in some coneflower. I have some world milkweed. I have native sunflower that I think would look really nice up there. So yeah, I have shady area to work with and full sun, so it'll be kind of nice to get a diverse amount of plants and species in there. Yeah.
Emily, let me ask you this. Do you have any advice for those of us in the world who have a black thumb? And yes, it is me.
What's a black thumb?
I can't grow things.
Is black the opposite of green?
I struggle.
I got it. Who try to be green thumbs but struggle and kill all the plants? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I struggle.
Like indoor plants or outdoor plants?
Outdoor plants.
So are you planting like potted plants you're buying from the store, or are you trying to do seed?
Seed. I have tried to grow coneflowers
Yeah.
for the last 3 years.
Do you start them?
And nothing grows.
Okay.
Do you start them in your house?
You don't have to. These guys are native. They can handle the outdoors.
Okay.
Yes, Sam.
So, no, it's just,
That's the good way to start planting outside.
it is. You can start some things inside, but that's one of the benefits of natives. They're usually pretty strong. You can handle the outdoor conditions. So, are you planting in spring or fall?
Spring.
Okay. If they're natives, you can plant in the fall or the spring.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, if you're are you buying the seeds? They're already ready to go, or are you picking them off flowers?
Buying the seeds.
Okay, so they're already stratified and ready to go. So put them in the ground, and you want to water them every day until you actually see things start popping through the ground, like green little buds. Okay, so don't forget to water them, because a lot of people forget to water their babies, and they need it. Coneflower is also a full sun kind of deal, so make sure you have your seeds in the proper area. You're not putting a coneflower somewhere shady, and you're not putting a fern somewhere super sunny. And then, yeah, the biggest thing is with natives, once they get going, they're fine, but you need to make sure they're watered until they start to propagate.
Shout out to all those with the black thumb. You're not alone. I'm just saying.
I would just say be patient and don't forget about them. I mean, my memory is not the best, and sometimes I'll forget about those kinds of things, but springtime, I generally try to water every day until I get some guys coming up through the soil, and then you can kind of relax a little bit on it.
So if you plant them in the fall, then you can just let them go all fall, all winter without watering them, and then water them in the spring.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you plant them in the fall, especially if you're getting seeds like directly off a plant, which is what I do here at the zoo, I go around and collect a lot of seeds from our native plants. I will you could just put them directly in the ground. They kind of need that cold stratification, so they need the winter to kind of help open up their shells and things like that to get the seeds ready to go. And then in the spring, the seed will be prepared and ready, and then you could put it then you can start watering it.
Do you think that there's a pollinator that is kind of being ignored? Like, I know people love talking about bees, people love talking about butterflies, but is there like pollinator that's being ignored that isn't being planted for in people's gardens?
So I'm still going to go the bee route, but I'm going to go with the solitary bee route. So a lot of people, when they think of bees, they think of like honeybees and bumblebees. Honeybees aren't a native species to us. Bumblebees are. They're really cute. They do a great job, but solitary bees actually pollinate way more than our bumblebees. So that's kind of the big reason why I try to promote people to not tear down their gardens in the winter, because that's where the solitary bees kind of hang out. And then you could do solitary bee houses, which is pretty much just like an open container of sorts with like bamboo shoots in it or something that is like cylindrical, sturdy, and they can go in there and they just hang out. So they're not in a hive, they're by themselves. They do a lot of work. I mean, they're still bees, we're still planting the same flowers for them, but people tend to get rid of their habitats, which are important.
Hey, Emily, do you want to play a little game with us?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Nice. Zach, do you want to introduce the game?
Sure, Sam. Here at Uproar, we like to call it 10 questions. How it will work is you will ask us up to 10 yes or no questions in order to determine what species we are thinking about. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so to make it a little bit easier, since you usually get 20 questions, we're going to tell you that we are thinking about a type of plant.
Okay.
Shocker.
Shocker, right? All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, ask away.
Is it native?
No.
We couldn't make this too easy for you, Emily.
Okay.
And as part of the game, because we can make up our own rules here, we are not plant experts. Sam might be, but most of us aren't. So we are going to be like live fact checking some questions that you ask if we don't know the answers to. So we're going to use the power of Google.
And they're yes or no questions.
Yeah, you need to ask yes or no questions.
Okay. Does it have big leaves? Okay.
If for our listener, she said about the size of a small dinner plate.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So no big leaves. Does it bloom in the summer?
Yes, yes and no. It's early, or hold on.
Late spring, early summer.
It's late spring, early summer.
Okay. Is it a bush?
No.
No.
Is it a tree?
No.
Okay.
How many questions do we have?
I think that's at 5.
So we can also, because like I said, we are the owners of this game, and we can make up our own rules as we go. We can give you some hints. Would you like a hint?
Yeah.
So your hint is it's on zoo grounds.
Okay. Is it a peony?
No.
No.
Then it's not a bush, so it's not a hibiscus. And I can't ask what color it is.
You can in a yes or no format.
But I'm running out. How many questions am I at?
6.
Well, can we give another hint about the color?
I can say where it's native from. Might clue you in.
No, don't do that. Do you remember that question we asked earlier about if you could, plant an invasive species?
Mm-hmm.
It's that color.
It's purple.
Yes.
Is it an iris?
No.
No.
It's a non-native plant that is still encouraged to be planted here in Ohio.
Is it clematis?
No.
No. No. Man, these are all purple flowers that bloom in spring to summer.
You're at 7.
And it's over by the Carousel Plaza.
Vegetable adjacent.
Mm-hmm. That's a good hint.
Did you just say vegetable
It's
adjacent?
a good hint.
That is a
Is
good hint.
vegetable adjacent? God.
It's not actually a vegetable.
I'm not good at clues. I just did an escape room the other day and we did really bad.
Were you the reason?
If you think about it, this is an escape room.
So I know.
Yeah,
And you
have to
can't
answer this correctly.
So
for
all
you
I
to-
have to do is do 3 more questions and we're done. Okay.
No, we give you more. That's that's the game.
Yeah, you can't leave this room until you
Okay,
answer.
by carousel, we have pansies. Are
No.
they we just planted roses over there?
Think of purple flowers over by Carousel Plaza.
Does it have a woody stalk?
No.
All right, we're at question
8.
8 here.
So you've got 2 more questions.
Do you want to narrow it down even more to the location?
I'm trying to think of carousel. think of
Think
in-
of tiger habitat.
It's sea holly.
No.
Nope.
Oh, I thought I had it.
You may not get this. Prince of...
Persia?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Think of a vegetable, too.
Carrots?
No. Not the Persian
We
carrot.
don't have Persian carrots here.
Is it allium?
Well, yeah.
Yay, correct. But also known as the Persian
Persian onion.
Oh, I wouldn't have said Persian onion. I would have said allium.
Well-
We would have got that because we're
wow.
Google fact checkers here.
I see the fireworks.
You know what's awesome is I'm using to fact check is the Akron Zoo's website.
Well, Emily, thanks for joining us today on Uproar. We really appreciate it. Is there anything that we didn't discuss that you would like to tell our listeners before you take off for the day?
Yeah, I would say whenever you guys come to the zoo in the summer, take a special look around our garden area by the barn owl. Me and my 2 other horticulturists, we are redoing that area. The part that I'm focusing on is actually going to be a sunflower garden. And hopefully we're going to be adding a bench so you'll be able to see a bunch of different kinds of sunflowers, different heights, different colors, and then a nature-themed bench that you can sit on and maybe get some pictures with flowers behind you.
That's a great idea, Emily. I think it's a great opportunity to visit our garden when you do visit the zoo. It's a great photo opportunity you can take with friends and family or your kids. And it's really just a great opportunity to sit on the nature bench and just really just get a chance to appreciate and enjoy nature and have a really zen moment while you're visiting the Akron Zoo. So thanks again for coming on our show. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uproar is a production of the Akron Zoo, produced by Vince Jeffries, scheduling and recording by Zach Berkey, sound mixing and editing by Caleb Morgan, researchers Zach Berkey, Randy Thomas, Elena Bell, and Sam James. Uproar is a weekly podcast with new episodes every Thursday. For more information on the Akron Zoo, visit akronzoo.org. For more information on Uproar, visit akronzoo.org/uproar. You're listening to Uproar, a podcast of the Akron Zoo that gives listeners a behind-the-scenes look at the zoo, our amazing animals, and the dedicated people who work here. With your Uproar hosts, Zach Berkey, Randy Thomas, Sam James, and Elena Bell. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Uproar.
Welcome to Uproar. Today our guest is Lauren, who's one of our animal care managers. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
It's literally our pleasure.
Hello there.
So, Lauren, can you kind of talk us through a little bit about what you do here at the Akron Zoo?
Sure. I'm our animal care manager for our hoofstock and primate team. So it kind of depends on the day, what my job entails. But essentially, I make sure that our hoofstock and primate animals are getting what they need and the keepers have what they need. You know, day by day, it changes.
For our listeners, can you kind of elaborate on what hoofstock primate animals look like here at the Akron Zoo?
Yeah, so we have 2 primate routines that our keepers do every day. So we have our gibbons and our tamarins on one routine, and then our lemur habitats and our loris on a second routine. And then for our hoofstock collection, even though we're projected for it to grow, our expansion in Africa, but for right now we have an exotic hoofstock routine, which is our Speaks gazelle habitat and our tufted deer habitat. So there's lots of birds in there as well. And then our second routine is our domestic hoofstock routine, and we have the goats and the alpaca on that, and randomly we put the big bats in there because our original keeper for that area loved the bats, and they didn't really fit anywhere else, so we put them in there, and we make it work. So, yeah, so it's a good mix of lots of different taxa on our team.
Was Christina the original keeper?
She was, yeah.
That's very fair.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why were primates and hoofstock put into the same team?
That's an excellent question. They are very different, both people and animal-wise. But being that we had, when we went taxonomic, meaning we went to a structure for our animal care department where it was by the type of animal versus kind of geographically within the zoo. We didn't have enough of primates at that time or enough of hoofstock for those 2 things to be separate teams. So we'll see as we kind of grow and change our the species within our zoo if that changes. But that was, the purpose of putting them together is really there wasn't enough of either one to make it its own team.
We lovingly call them the Hoofamus Prime Team.
Yeah.
Nobody calls
That's
them
the
that.
first time I've ever heard that.
I've never heard him call
It
that
is
before.
a thing in animal care.
It is a thing. I tried to make it our radial handle, but I was told Hooftimus prime Lauren was too long to say. So
I still call you that sometimes.
I appreciate that, Elena.
I guess we're in the out crowd.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
seriously.
Transformers
Not
are
the cool
the way.
table.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Get with the times, Randall.
Yeah.
So, with having some of our habitats have both hoofstock and bird animals in them, how do the teams work cooperatively to care for those animals?
Good
Excellent question, Elena.
it's a good one.
So we work very closely with our avian team, both our animal care manager for that team, Joe, and the keepers within the avian team. Whenever we need to do exams on those birds that are in our habitats, or we have a lot of breeding pairs, so when we have eggs, when we have chicks, that team's highly involved in, if we have to hand rear or anything like that. So it is cooperatively where we're kind of working together in those moments. The day-to-day care is on the hoofstock and primate team.
So, do you have a passion for hoofstock and primate, or did they just need a manager and you said, hey, I like animals?
Animals. I can do that.
I'm a fan of those things.
Yeah, I like being at the zoo. So I've been here for 12 years now. Originally, I was on what we called our Komodo team, and we took care of everything in our Komodo Kingdom building. So that's very diverse, right? We have mammals, we have fish, we have reptiles, we have amphibians, we had insects, we had it all. And the tamarins were always my favorite, the golden line tamarins we have in our rainforest habitat. So when we decided to break up our animal care department to more look like, you're caring for all the avian animals, you're caring for all the carnivore animals. I knew I wanted to kind of follow where the primates went. So hoofstock has become a favorite of mine and a passion of mine, especially as we're kind of planning Africa too. You were asking me which one's my favorite. I don't know that I could give you an answer.
So the golden lion tamarins aren't your favorite anymore?
No, I still highly involved in them. I actually last year got the vice chair position for that species survival program.
Wow.
So that's been very exciting. But so we have some things in the works for that species. So yeah, I still love our tamarins, but the hoofstock are a whole different ball game. I'm pretty sure Noel, our alpaca, is my favorite.
Shout out to Noel.
Shout out to Noel.
Yeah.
All
He's
my
the king of the
homies
zoo.
like Noel.
He is just the guy.
Just
Yeah.
don't tell Tamar.
I will tell tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll tell Tomato's face.
Yeah, I'm not scared.
So you said we have domestic hoofstock here, like goats. Why do we have anything domestic that's normally a domestic animal here at the zoo?
Great question, Zach. So I think one of the reasons, right, is I know you have children. Don't they love the goats?
They love they
Can
love
confirm,
goats.
yep.
Yep. My children love the goats too. So it is one of those animals that we can easily connect our guests to them, right? Safe to do. The goats love it. They benefit from those guest interactions as well. So that's one of the reasons. But within our Pride of Africa habitat, right, we're really trying to tell the story of what those indigenous people's lives look like, right, in Africa. And goats are one of their largest hoofstock species that they raise, and care for within, their bomas, is kind of one of the terms for their houses, right? And so it's kind of trying to tell that story, right? And show a little bit what bomas would look like, right, in Africa. So that's, why they are in our Africa habitat. And then, the other reason is I think most people love goats. And if you don't love goats, I would question you as a human, I think.
So, Lauren, you mentioned a boma, and I just wanted to explain to our listeners what that word means. So, we work with a conservation organization called Rebuilding the Pride, who's actually boots on the ground in Kenya, working with farmers to help protect their livelihood, which is their livestock like goats, from lions, but also in return protecting the lions. So, a boma is a type of livestock enclosure that helps keep the livestock safe from the lions, and then in return keeps the lions safe from the farmers. It's helping to work together to keep the wildlife safe in Africa. So we also wanted to show what that looks like here in Akron.
Lauren, can you kind of talk about your background and your history with the zoo's conservation efforts and initiatives, maybe specifically the Cancer Corridors program that you run?
Sure. So also to age myself, started a recycling-based conservation initiative back in 2014, so over 10 years ago. We've been involved in, as Randy mentioned, Cans for Corridors. So we collect cans here on our zoo's parking lot site, a drop-off location in our lower parking area. So if you drink a lot of aluminum cans, feel free to collect them and bring them to us. And we started that, like I said, back in 2014, but our AZAC chapter actually started it. Stands for American Association of Zookeepers. We were a new chapter at that time, and I brought back the idea from a conference I attended all about halotrichids, which are tamarins and marmosets, at a zoo named Durrell. So it's on a tiny island off the coast of France. So super cool place. If you ever have a chance to visit, you should. And they had started that initiative. So we brought back the idea to our AZAC chapter because starting out, we didn't have a lot of money. We wanted to make a difference in conservation, right? That's one of the biggest goals for AZAC. And knowing we didn't have a lot of funds to hold fundraisers or anything like that yet, we thought it was a good opportunity to kind of connect with our public in a way that we could make a meaningful impact. So we initially started with just staff and volunteers bringing in cans once a month. I'd sit in our parking lot and collect them in my boyfriend's truck and take them to the recycling center, rain, snow, whatever was happening that day here in lovely Ohio weather. And then eventually we grew to, I applied for a grant through the National AZAC chapters. Trees for You and Me is what it was called. And we got some money to kind of help establish a permanent site, and that's when we opened it up to the public and started collecting cans. So I think to date we've raised like almost $19,000. I know I just emailed this to you, Elena.
So to date, in the 10 years that we have been doing Cans for Corridors here at the Akron Zoo, we have raised $13,663, which has planted 17,449 trees in the Brazilian rainforest.
That was going to be my next question. Like, what kind of actual impact has Cans for Corridors had?
Yeah, so at the end of every year, we take the money that we've raised from just recycling cans, right, which is a simple thing, and most people recycle, right? So you're already kind of doing it. We're just asking for you to bring it here to the zoo instead. And we send that to an organization in Brazil called IPE, and they're the boots on the ground who are planting native trees in what they call tree corridors. So if you kind of think of it as like a highway made out of trees. And the main species that they're trying to help over there are black lion tamarins. So we have golden lion tamarins here, but black lion tamarins aren't actually found in any U.S. zoos in human care. There are only a few in European zoos, so I was lucky enough to see them when I visited Durrell. But they're not breeding well in human care, and there's not a lot of them. So there isn't like a safety net population like we currently have for golden lion tamarins. So if something were to happen to their isolated populations, it'd be really bad for them and they could go extinct. So that's what their goal is, to try and connect those isolated patches of protected rainforest together in kind of a tree corridor. We're directly helping them by giving them money to buy and plant more trees. So, we have almost 20,000 trees sitting in Brazilian rainforest because of the Akron Zoo.
Pretty upset you didn't say good question, Randy, when I asked my question.
So sorry. That's a great question, Randy.
Everyone else got a good question but me.
Do we always have to
It's not always
baby
about you, Randall.
Ego is
My ego's
out of
shattered
control.
right now.
It's out of control.
very fragile.
So over the years, Lauren, I know you have been involved in some amazing care stories for our animals. Can you maybe share one of your favorites?
Sure. When you ask a keeper what their favorite animal is, it's a hard question, right?
No.
Yeah, I mean, my current favorite, and hopefully no one on my team is mad about this, but I think I make it pretty obvious. My current favorite animal here on the Akron Zoo in general is definitely Noel. But probably for a care story, I don't know if I want to say it's a tie, but we had our male Speaks Gazelle, Gondar. He was a good, solid animal. He worked with us well. He was very personable, and most hoofstock, exotic hoofstock, right, aren't like that. As a prey species, they tend to not want to be near you. And he was very different from the beginning. So he was our first Speaks Gazelle that we brought here, and I was able to go to the St. Louis Zoo and learn from their staff about Speaks Gazelle and bring him here. So I was kind of with him from the very beginning. And one day we came in, and he had a broken leg. We never figured out why it happened. There wasn't anything obvious. and our vet immediately splinted it. We worked with our maintenance crew to kind of like make the exact type of thickness pieces that she needed for the splint, like on the fly. It was a very collaborative project in the moment. And we weren't sure, like a lot of hoof stock, if you have a broken leg, they're not going to have a good quality of life, and you're going to have to make a decision. And we didn't want to make a snap decision on him. We wanted to give him a chance. So we splinted him. We immediately contacted an orthopedic surgeon who has done similar surgeries, but not in any hoof stock, I believe. So he was willing to come out and try, and he operated on his leg. He had this big kind of like apparatus around it. And knowing that he was so personable with us, and knowing that we could kind of get our hands on him more easily, right? It didn't stress him out the way it would other probably Speaks Gazelles. We were able to do regular checkups on him, and eventually he got that apparatus off, and he was able to use that leg, never in the way that he was able, right, to when he was when it was normal, but he bred after that and had another baby, and had a decent quality of life. And we monitored him after that injury very closely, and he developed some arthritis eventually. And then we noticed he kind of went off feed, which is really bad for a ruminant. Once they stop putting food in there, kind of everything slows down and gets messed up. And we did some x-rays on him, and we saw a large mass. Unfortunately, had to make the decision to humanely euthanize him at that point, knowing it was most likely cancer. And on the necropsy, that's what we found out. But I think he's my favorite story just because we put a lot of effort into him, right, to get him through that injury. And we probably couldn't have if it wasn't for his individual personality, right? So That was a really cool story. That first day we got to put him back outside after he got his apparatus off was a really cool moment for me.
So that's really an amazing story because of all of your hard work and your caring for Gondar, you gave him several more years of life, and he was able to breed and continue this critically endangered species. It's a pretty amazing story.
Thanks, Elena. Yeah. He was one of my favorite animals we've ever had here.
Lauren, are you ready to play a game?
That's a great question, Randy.
Thank you.
I would love to play a game.
All right. Let's get going on the game. Then, Zach, why don't you go over the rules?
All right, here at Uproar, we like to call it 10 questions. How it will work is you will ask us up to 10 yes or no questions in order to determine what animal we are thinking about. Okay?
Perfect. Only 10, are you sure?
Only 10.
Only 10.
Right.
Only 10.
Right.
But to make it a little bit easier, since you normally get 20 questions, I will tell you we're thinking about a type of fish.
Okay.
Okay?
There's a lot of those.
There is a lot of those.
Hey, I got a fish with my question, too. So here at Uproar, we, believe it or not, are not animal experts.
I know this about you, yeah.
We know that you are an animal expert. So when you ask a question that we don't know the answer to, we reserve the right to get on our phones, Google the question that you asked us to make sure that we are giving you accurate information.
Okay, perfect. Good idea.
Ask away.
Do we have this fish at the Akron Zoo?
Yes.
Does it live in warm water?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Does it live in salt water?
No.
No.
So I'm trying to think about how many freshwater fish tanks we have. The rainforest, got a Bulu.
These all count as questions, by the way.
No, I'm thinking out loud. It's not a question.
Should have looking for our eyes to be like,
Haven't phrased it.
Cichlid?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question, Sam. Is it a cichlid?
No.
First of all,
No.
that's not a great question.
Gotcha.
Darn it, you led me down the wrong path. Okay, that eliminates a couple species we have here. Is it the electric eel?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
many was
Five
that?
questions.
I
Five
think
questions.
That was 5. Darn it, Kathleen still beat me. That's okay.
Yeah.
Sam ruined that for you with that. He threw.
Well, what were you
going
going to ask instead?
Well, I was going to just go with eel, actually, because I was like, it's either the eel or cichlids. But if I ask the cichlid question, then I know it's
then
the eel.
you know it's the eel.
Yeah.
What's it like leading a team of people compared to just being a keeper?
It has its challenges occasionally, right? Like anything else. But, I think I'm better with the people than I was with the animals. So I think it fits me actually better.
Well, primate manager, yeah.
Yeah. My biggest goal is, right, to help them reach their fullest potential and reach their goals. As I was a keeper myself for 10 years. And so I know day in and day out, right? Like you invest so much time and energy into the animals. It's easy to get lost in the day-to-day and feel like you're not making progress on a project that's important to you, right? Or having an impact because, you're like, I see them every day. And so it's nice to be that kind of outside eye now to point out their successes as they're having them, right? And encourage them along the way. It brings me joy to be a manager. And I think we have a really good management crew in our animal care department. We have a lot of fun, just like you guys do. We have some good banter back and forth, right? Because it can get stressful, and we're always there for each other to kind of help each other through those stressful moments, right? Or if you have to have those difficult conversations, and kind of play off of each other and practice that conversation before you really have it, right?
So how many people do you manage?
So we have 4 full-time, what we call principal keepers on the hoofstock and primate team. So that means they kind of oversee all aspects of that specific routine. And we have 4 of the routines like I was talking about. So we have those 4. We have a lead keeper for each team. And then we have swing keepers that kind of go back and forth between a couple of teams. A different manager manages the swing keepers for my team. And then we have temporary keepers, which is kind of like a seasonal rotating position. So I directly oversee 6 people.
Who's your favorite?
I'm not obliged to answer that question.
Lauren, I don't know if you'll actually have an answer for this, but it made me think of when you said, like, when you're talking about your day-to-day responsibilities, like no 2 days are the same. Was there something that stands out when you think of, like, this is, like, I never thought I would have had to do something like this, and then, like, have a story behind that?
I was here late last night. Our red ruff lemurs, they're all sisters, and they go through a regular yearly cycle, their estrus cycle. So their hormones are all over the place during that time. And so we do a lot of things during that period to kind of help mitigate their behavior towards each other during their estrus cycles. We up the amount of times we feed them, we up their enrichment, we change their environment, we constantly are monitoring them. And sometimes it doesn't matter what we do, and, they're going to get in their little tiffs. So we had a little bit of that happening last night. Occasionally when that happens, we'll kind of kennel them all up. They're very good at kenneling. We've worked really hard on their training for that, and kind of take them off habitat and then add things to their habitat to kind of mix it up and make it new, and then reintroduce them back to the space to kind of do like a reset, kind of now in a new area. Even though it's the same habitat, it looks different, it smells different, because a lot of it is territorial based, right? So if you come to my zone, I'm going to be upset during this time of year. So if we can kind of mix up what their zone was, kind of gives them a reset. And so that's what we had to do last night. We were here till 7, me and a couple keepers monitoring them, and we added a bunch of bamboo. We changed up some perching. We scattered enrichment everywhere. We put up different like things to create hides, so bed sheets and that stuff like that. And then we sprinkled spices everywhere, sprayed bitter apple, which is something we use on our hoofstock to like deter them from chewing on wood occasionally. And put them all back together and stepped out of the habitat and watched them for a while. And they kind of calmed down and relaxed and went to sleep. And, we felt better walking away from them. But, I think with hoofstock and primates specifically, you never know what you're walking into.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a really great conversation. Before we let you go, is there anything else you'd like to mention?
Sure. I know we talked about cans for corridors, but remember, if you have aluminum cans and you can bring them into the zoo, every can counts. And I know I mentioned AZAC earlier in our conversation as well. And like the zoo has their own social media pages. The AZAC chapter has their own Facebook page as well. So you could like that page to follow them and all the conservation initiatives they're doing as well, in conjunction with the zoo and on their own. And they host lots of fun events throughout the year that you could look out for and attend.
So you can find their Facebook page at Akron Zoo AAZK.
Well, thank you so much for being
here.
here.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast. You guys are quite the hilarious group of individuals.
She was trying to find a nice way to say that.
Trying to find a good adjective there.
You guys
quite the question askers.
Unique.
Unique is a good one. Yeah, you offer a unique perspective.
Uproar is a production of the Akron Zoo, produced by Vince Jeffries, scheduling and recording by Zach Berkey, sound mixing and editing by Caleb Morgan, researchers Zach Berkey, Randy Thomas, Elena Bell, and Sam James. Uproar is a weekly podcast with new episodes every Thursday. For more information on the Akron Zoo, visit akronzoo.org. For more information on Uproar, visit akronzoo.org/uproar. You're listening to Uproar, a podcast of the Akron Zoo that gives listeners a behind-the-scenes look at the zoo, our amazing animals, and the dedicated people who work here. With your Uproar hosts, Zach Berkey, Randy Thomas, Sam James, and Elena Bell. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Uproar.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Uproar. On today's episode, we have Christina, the Akron Zoo's conservation coordinator. Christina has been with the Akron Zoo for over 7 years. 5 years as a full-time animal keeper, and for the last 2+ years, Christina has been the zoo's conservation coordinator. Welcome, Christina.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Hi there.
What's up?
Howdy.
All right, Christina, I have to ask, what inspired you to move from hands-on animal care as a keeper to a role as focusing on the zoo's broader conservation efforts?
So I have been interested and passionate about conservation for a long time, basically my whole life. But when I was an undergrad, I had a degree in zoology and environmental science. So learning about how the climate is affecting animals, the environment, and then I pursued a minor in geography that focused on global climate change and how it affects people around the whole world and affects people differently depending on where they live and a lot of other factors. So I've been interested and have been learning about it for a while. And then while I was in animal care, pursued a degree in sustainability with a focus on natural resource management and environmental science and ecology. There's a lot of other factors involved like sustainable infrastructure, waste management, and took courses on those subjects as well. But as I was working with animals, I loved my job so much. There's nothing like it. You're working directly with individual animals or sometimes a group at a time and connecting with species that aren't even here often. You know, a lot of the species at the zoo aren't in Ohio, and it's unique, it's special. It was really cool, and I loved it. I learned so much, work with amazing people who are so inspiring. Yeah, I loved that job a lot, but as I pursued my graduate degree and learned more and more in depth about current things happening in the world, the projections for the future, I kept just getting this voice in the back of my head as I was working with animals. I'd be hand feeding a grape to a bat and thinking about how, our Rodriguez flying foxes, we have one on habitat still. He's the oldest bat at the zoo. His name is Garth, and
Garth from Wayne's World or
Yes.
Garth Brooks?
Yep.
Garth from Wayne's World. Got it.
Yes, because Wayne passed away recently.
yeah, Wayne passed,
And
I think last year or 2 years ago.
And I wanted to say, too, Randy's the oldest bat at the zoo. That old bat.
But, you're having these really cool moments that I never took for granted. But, as I'm connecting with these animals, I'll be hand feeding a bat in the back of my head thinking about how climate change is affecting the island that they're native to. It's a really small island called Rodriguez Island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And this species in particular really being on a small island in the middle of the ocean that experiences really intense monsoon seasons. This species really relies on having a lot of tree cover and protection against those monsoons. And with climate change, we all know that storm intensity is increasing, frequency is also increasing. So there's going to be more storms, and the storms we have are going to be more and more intense. At the same time, sea level is rising, and habitat loss is a factor everywhere. There are a lot of great efforts going on for that species on Mauritius Island. But, that's just one example where in the back of my head, I couldn't turn that voice off. And I kept just wanting to, get in the action more directly in conservation. So, you know, you spend so much of your time at work during the day. And I kept thinking, like, man, if I wasn't cleaning up after these goats right now, you know, I could be working with external partners to, you know, figure out a way to plant more native plants in Akron. Things like that would pop into my head, and I couldn't turn it off. And the more I kept learning, the more it kept coming back. And I was like, all right, I gotta find something soon. I keep getting pulled away from this mentally. And the next thing I know, a job opening opened up here at the Akron Zoo, and I'm so grateful for that because I did not want to leave working here. It's so much fun. I love it. We work with the best people. So yeah, I got to stay here at the zoo and continue conservation. I still get to see, you know, the bats on habitat, and I know I mention the bats a lot. I love all the animals at the zoo.
You wrote your senior paper on bats, is that correct?
Yes, my graduate thesis.
Your graduate you got your undergraduate in zoology, and if I was you and I went to Harvard for my graduate level degree, I would have that plastered all over the place. And I would introduce myself as, there you go. Hello, my name is Randy. I graduated from Harvard.
Disclaimer, no, he did not.
I said if.
He went to Kent State, so
a very prestigious school.
I mean, are we really going to be hating on Kent State right now? Because I also went to Kent State.
I mean, just because Akron's better than Kent State. I mean,
in what world?
No,
in my world.
I graduated from Akron, and it is not. I currently live in Kent.
So, Christina, tell me about when you really wanted to shift your focus from doing like hands-on work with like the animals, and you kept getting pulled away to want to get like boots on the ground for conservation. What are some of the things that you do as a conservation coordinator? Obviously, you have some office time, but when you're not in the office, what are some of these things that you're doing like in the field?
Good question. It depends on the time of year. So we have a really cool program here, the Junior Interpreter Program, that Miss Shelley runs, and we get teen volunteers through that program. They help me throughout the summer that they're here. They help me to monitor for fungi diversity and pollinator diversity here on our Akron Zoo campus. So we have a path that we walk to monitor for pollinators, and then we have a different path that we walk to monitor for fungi. So we're just looking to count what we see, what species, and then take a couple notes like time of day, weather, where we're finding it. For the pollinators, we try to note if it's on a plant, what plant it's on, what species of plant, and then for the fungi, just describing like the site. Is it coming out of mulch or rotted log or just dirt path?
Now, for those listening at home, why is that important to monitor and track data on pollinators and fungi, and specifically like what plants are? I mean, I know the reason, but you know, I went to Kent State. But
wow.
For those people who
Very
maybe aren't aware, listening at home, can you explain why that's important?
Yeah, so it's important for a lot of reasons. One is that we can't survive without pollinators.
Seems important.
Yeah, eating food is essential to humans, and without pollinators, we can't do that because we can't grow food. And so knowing where we have pollinators, what species we have, what plants that are supporting those species, so we can use that information for a few different things. For example, if I'm seeing a species that is always on a specific plant, like a butterfly species, we see a lot of silver-spotted skippers here on property. Maybe I can find what species of plant that they enjoy pollinating. And I know that if I were to continue planting that species of plant, we'll see more silver-spotted skippers. So that's one use for it. Also noting if there's an increase or a decrease in the number of a species. So we would love to support more monarchs here because they are in the process of getting listed as endangered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So that's a really, really big deal. And if we, work towards efforts of trying to plant species of milkweed for them here on property, and we begin seeing more and more of them, we can't tell that story if we're not actually collecting data on it. It really is a way to show the numbers behind just sightings.
Is there anything our listeners at home can do to help pollinators?
Yes, it can do so much. Even doing so little makes a big impact. So the Summit Metro Parks has a program called Wild Backyards, and the way that they communicate the steps that you can take to help our native wildlife is so simple. They lay it out in categories. So one thing you can do is plant more native plant species in your home, in your yard. Even if you have a apartment balcony and you just put a potted plant out on your balcony, that helps a lot, because those seeds are going to spread and those species are going to spread in our area. So even if you're planting one native plant species, that makes a huge impact. You can work your way up to learning more and planting maybe 10 or 20.
So, Christina, other than the fungi and the native or the pollinator program that you do here, what other programs do you head up here at the zoo?
I'm also part of, well, it's not technically in the zoo, but I'm also part of a group called SOSA. So that's a Summit of Sustainability Alliance. We are a member, the Akron Zoo is a member of that, and I wanted to bring that up because I think it's a little known gem that Summit County actually has a lot of organizations that work on sustainability. There are a lot of people here who care, and not just care, but are actively trying to make things more sustainable in our area. Akron doesn't always get the best reputation, but we are doing so many cool things, and not just Akron, but our whole county. So there are groups in SOSA that are government entities, nonprofits like the zoo, school organizations, and for-profit businesses. And we're coming together and just seeing, what are some initiatives we want to work on? What are common initiatives amongst all of us? And let's just work together to make that happen. So it's a really cool group of people. I go to a few SOSA meetings, like 2 a month, basically, and then do emails and stuff. So that's another kind of random way that I spend time that people don't know about here. And last year was put as the vice chair of SOSA.
Wow.
Hey.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it a lot. And, like when you're with a group of people who all share the same passion and are just really trying to make the world better, you're just surrounded by, it's just a great group to be around. So that's another one that is really cool.
Can we do a plug for Lights Out? Now, obviously, I'm a Lights Out alumni. Now, that sounds really cool, like I'm part of a boxing school.
Yeah. So Lights Out Akron is a program where we are walking around downtown Akron, and that includes the University of Akron campus. And we are walking around at around dawn and looking for birds that have hit buildings. So there's a few reasons why birds are hitting windows. When they're hitting buildings, it's usually because they're hitting windows, and it's usually because they're flying directly at a window. At night, when there's a lot of light pollution, so light pollution is the idea that there's just so many lights on in urban and suburban areas that you can't see the night sky like you should be able to without all those lights on. And what happens is it draws birds into those areas. And the effect that the light pollution is having is bringing birds down into urban and suburban areas rather than flying over them and continuing on their path when they're migrating. And they get really tired. They try to find their way out of cities. They can get lost. They get tired, and then they rest there overnight. And then in the morning, the building lights are no longer an issue. The issue is the reflective glass or material on windows. So essentially, if you are looking at a window that's really reflective, you can see your reflection in it, but you can also see the reflection of everything behind you. So imagine looking at a window and you're looking at your reflection, and it may be reflecting some shrubs or trees behind you. In the fall, you have all of the birds that have been in their summer breeding grounds and they're young. So their babies and juveniles that were just hatched this year in the fall, they're all flying down. So a lot of these species mostly are living in forested or, more natural landscapes that don't have buildings. So these species, when they see that reflection, the individuals, when they see their reflection in the window and they see natural areas behind them, they think that they can pass right through and they're hitting buildings. And so it's a really big issue across the country. There have been some really big wins for lights out, and a lot of that is based on, has happened because of the data collection. So for at least, I think, 20 or 30 years, Lights Out has been a program in Canada and the U.S., and or at least there's been versions of it in Canada and the U.S. For example, in downtown Cleveland, when they built the Rocket Mortgage Field House, they built it with really reflective glass around the whole building. And the Lights Out program in Cleveland, who's awesome, they have been collecting data on that since the building was constructed. And they were able to show the numbers and the thousands of birds dying every year just from flying into that building structure. So with that information, also what needed to happen were the building owners and the business owners being willing to pay to make that problem better. And luckily, that's what happened. So they were able to get that building wrapped with a film that basically takes that reflective image and puts dots all over it and breaks it up so that it looks like an obscured image. And a bird flying, to a bird flying, it doesn't look like something they can pass through.
Mm-hmm. And you'll see that the zoo does that with their windows and glasses too.
Yeah.
Like some on our habitats and some right on our welcome center window. They have those stickers and things that are on the glass that make it non-reflective, basically.
Mm-hmm. And people can buy stickers in our gift shop and put them on their windows at their homes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, we sell them in the gift shop. And one thing to keep in mind is to just make sure you're installing the stickers close enough to each other. And you're able to see out your window fine, so you can still see, whatever beautiful views you enjoy looking out your window. But when you're on the outside of the window looking in, it obscures the image so that
prevents bird strikes.
Yeah, it prevents bird strikes.
So the aviary at the Akron Zoo has North American songbirds. And something I've heard our guests say frequently is, why do I want to go into a habitat at the zoo when I can just see these birds in my backyard? Why is this aviary so important?
Oh my gosh. I feel so honored to be able to answer this question because it is really important. If you talk to Shane Good, he can tell you so much about it. But I do know that it is one of the 3 largest North American songbird aviaries. So there are only 2 others in the U.S. that are like it. And it's also important because, we are very proud at the Akron Zoo that you can see our animals up close. And the aviary is a really great example of that because you're not just looking at them 40 feet away in the woods. A lot of these species, it's kind of hard to see them. You need binoculars. And it's a lot of fun going bird watching or birding. It's so much fun. I love it. But it can be really hard to find birds in the wild. And here we have, a collection of how many species is it?
Oh, there's a good amount.
I think it's like
there.
49 or something. There are so many species that you can see here that are really close to you. I don't know. It's a really relaxing place, and it just gives people that really special opportunity to see so many beautiful species in one spot and up close.
It's kind of like I Spy, because every time you go in there, you see 1 or 2 different birds, and you're like, those are also in here?
Yeah. And it's, I mean, especially during the spring and summer, and they're a little more active, it sounds so beautiful, you know, like visually it's beautiful. You're able to hear them make all of their beautiful songs, and it's just like an all immersive experience.
Hey, Christina, you want to play a quick game?
Yeah.
Here at Uproar, we like to call it 10 questions. Okay, how it will work is you're going to ask us 10 yes or no questions in order to determine what animal we are thinking about. Okay, but to make it a little bit easier, since it's normally 20 questions, I will tell you we're thinking about a type of mammal.
Okay.
Okay, Christina, are you ready?
Yes.
So before you start too, we here at Uproar are not animal experts. So we will be kind of like live fact checking any questions you may ask that we don't know the answer to. So we'll be using the power of Google if we happen to not know an answer to your question.
Cool.
All right, so ask away.
Just to repeat, not
That's
to
one
use
question.
a question. But you said that it's a type of mammal?
Mammal,
That's the
correct.
one thing I have so far?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, you know
We
it's a
have
mammal.
one question.
Okay.
We have 9 left. No, the record is 4, I believe.
Yes.
4 questions
Yeah.
asked.
So I'm going to ask the same first question. Is it a species that's at the zoo?
No.
No. Okay. Is it native to Ohio?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. A mammal that is not at the zoo that is native to Ohio. Is it a bat species?
No.
No.
Is it a large mammal?
No.
Define large.
4 inches.
Can you fit it in a bread box? I think someone asked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I can go in a bread box. If that will help you with your size question.
Is it an endangered species?
Yes. Some of these are considered endangered.
All right, I
How
think
many questions is that?
so. You're up to 5. So I
Okay.
think we need to give her a little bit of a hint. What do you guys think? What hint do you think we could give her?
They are arboreal. They live in trees.
Thank you for that.
It's a little, yeah, I'm knowledgeable too. Okay.
There are some species of it that are endangered.
Yeah, I don't think the ones that in Ohio are endangered, but some of the subspecies.
Is it
I
a
guess.
squirrel species?
It is.
Is it eastern fox squirrel?
It is not. You're just going straight to guessing the animal.
What other question are you going to ask about squirrel? Squirrels are squirrels.
A gray squirrel?
No. How many are we at here?
8.
Oh no, we're getting so close.
And we do reserve the right to give you more if you need it.
Yeah.
You know, we're
And
all
we
here for
could also
fun.
give you some
It's our
other
game.
hints.
We can do whatever
We
we
might
want.
give you an
so
extra hint
cute.
at like 8 or 9.
It'll cost you,
Fox,
though.
gray. I think there's also a eastern red squirrel in Ohio.
Nope.
Flying squirrel.
Was that right at number 10?
That was number
Nice.
10. Look at
Hey.
that.
Well, you didn't break the record. Womp
The
womp.
goal was to make you think bat,
I
but it
see
not
what
be a
you
bat.
did there.
All right, Christina. Well, we appreciate you sitting down and talking with all 4 of us, and just wanted to kind of give you the opportunity to plug in anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about today on your behalf.
Thank you. I will just say that no matter who anyone is and where they live, there's little things you can do to help the planet. So I know that there's so many things happening with our planet right now that is putting its health, in a decline. And it can be really, really overwhelming. A lot of times when I talk to people, especially young people kind of just starting to learn about everything going on, it can be really overwhelming. And it's hard to take action when there are so many things that you can do. But I always encourage people to start with just one thing. And no matter what, if you're starting one habit to reduce your impact on our planet, that is going to make a huge difference. And you never know how that impacts even the people around you. You could start a ripple effect of other people starting that one habit to help our planet. And then maybe after a year, you add on one more. So every little bit makes a difference because the planet really needs all of us to try something, and everyone can make a difference, even if they're just doing one thing to try to help the planet. So that's one thing that I really want to emphasize, is that we can all help, even if it's in little ways.
Well, thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Well said.
thanks.
Yes, thank you, Christina.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Uproar is a production of the Akron Zoo, produced by Vince Jeffries, scheduling and recording by Zach Berkey, sound mixing and editing by Caleb Morgan, researchers Zach Berkey, Randy Thomas, Elena Bell, and Sam James. Uproar is a weekly podcast with new episodes every Thursday. For more information on the Akron Zoo, visit akronzoo.org. For more information on Uproar, visit akronzoo.org/uproar.